I'm Michael Phillips, and welcome to video 4 in our series, The Truth About Truth. The topic for today is going to be hacking truth. How can we go in and change the software inside of us to shift our experience of life, to connect to a higher truth, to become more powerful, more functional, to make more money, to have less pain, to experience more joy, more intuition, more fulfillment, more love? So how do we do this? Well, the first thing I want to do is introduce a little bit of vocabulary. This is part of that model that we're building here. I want to introduce the idea of belief systems, stories, and archetypes. So what does that mean? Well, first, just realize this is my vocabulary. Other people may use these words a little differently, but I think it's really important to be clear and precise about exactly what we mean when we use certain words. So a belief is simply one line of code in your subconscious mind. Examples of beliefs would be rich people are greedy, or I have to be poor to be close to God, or I'll never be worthy, right? And we have millions, maybe billions of individual beliefs. Because remember, the way I see it, the body is like a computer hardware. We're kind of stuck with it. We can change it to some extent within some limitations, but there's only so much you can do to change your biology and your body. But your subconscious is the software. And we have an enormous amount we can do to change our software. So the software inside of you, what I call the software of the soul or your subconscious, is made up of nothing more than individual lines of code. And these are actually stored in the DNA. And some authors like Greg Braden have expanded on this in some detail. So your subconscious is just computer code. And each line of code is a belief system. So that's sort of the most basic, most fundamental level. A story is like a whole routine, a small program. It's a bunch of lines of code that work together to create a specific result. So in terms of computer code, you might have a function or a procedure that calculates a square root. So that's not just one line of code, it's probably a couple dozen lines of code. But you can use it as a higher level function that says, well, here's a number, calculate the square root. So that's what I would call a story. So a story would be your belief systems about everything that's happened to you. A story would be poverty consciousness. A story would be self-worth. A story would be racial prejudice. A story would be your beliefs about money or your beliefs about love or other people, right? And so all these stories inside of us, they create the software of your life. But those stories are made up of beliefs in the same way that computer procedures and functions are made up of individual lines of code. Then at the highest level, we have archetypes. An archetype would be like a whole computer program. And so we have millions or billions of beliefs. We have dozens or hundreds of stories or mythologies. And most people have a small number of primary archetypes, maybe a dozen. In the same way that on your computer, your phone, you probably have a small number of programs you use all the time. Your web browser, or maybe Twitter, or the camera, or Instagram, or whatever, right? There's a lot of programs on there, but there's a small number you use all the time. That's the same with our lives. We have a small number of archetypes, which are all these different stories and programs and codes that define who we are. So an example of an archetype would be being a victim. That kind of defines who you are and how you relate to everything. Or being a victor is on the flip side. An example from the comic book world would be the wounded Avenger, someone like Batman. That someone had a wound when they were very young or in a very difficult part of their life, and they spend their life trying to help others so that they don't have to suffer the same way. And many of us in the path of the healer doing spiritual work are like that. That's one of our archetypes, that we had pain and we overcame it and we want to help others to move through that pain. Certainly defines me, and it probably defines you too. So that's some basic vocabulary. We got our beliefs, we got our stories, we got our archetypes. Now what do we do with it? Well, there's actually a lot we can do with it. In terms of shifting belief systems, what we call digging, processes with metaphysics to identify and change single lines of code, that's very fast and easy to learn. Anyone that comes through just one weekend intensive with me will learn how to identify and clear or download belief systems in a matter of seconds. So that's a very easy thing, at least with the technology I've developed. Now I understand 20, 30 years ago, it would have seemed like magic. But in the same way that a cell phone from today, 30 years ago, would have seemed like magic, of course. So this consciousness technology is developing just like electronic technology. And so we can actually change our belief systems. What I want to point out, though, is that there is a difference between truth, which is a verifiable story that's going to be the same, right? That when there is a truth, 1 + 1 = 2. The strength of gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. Within the context of the truth, it really can't be changed, or it's extremely difficult. Only the highest level people would be able to change those most fundamental truths. But a belief system that creates validating evidence is not the same as the truth. And this is the important concept here. Many of us live in prisons constructed out of what we think we know, because we have these deep-seated subconscious belief systems that work through the law of attraction to deliver us experiences that validate those belief systems. And we look at it and go, it's not a belief, it's truth. No, it's a belief. But your beliefs are so powerful, they will manifest their own validating evidence. As an example, maybe when you were young, maybe you were engaged or married or dating someone seriously and they cheated on you and broke your heart. You may then take on this powerful belief system that everyone that loves me cheats on me, betrays me. And you may have a dozen other relationships over the next 20 years where that keeps happening. Now, is that because every man or every woman is a cheater and will betray you? No. But it's because when you have a belief system that's so powerfully embedded within you that it will create its own evidence. That's what I mean by a belief system creates its own validating evidence. That's not truth. That's a completely different thing. Another example would be rich people are greedy. Maybe you had experiences where you got ripped off by wealthy people, or they were really greedy and stingy. You may form that as a powerful belief system. Then you will create that in your life. And you can look at specific things that happen to you and go, look, it's not just a belief. This happened and this happened and this happened. It's true. No, it's not absolutely true, not even within the relative context of human life on earth, not even within your life. But when you believe it strongly enough, you will create validating evidence that supports it. And then your belief gets even stronger. And then you create more validating evidence. That's the trap I want you to see. And this we can break out of. It may take some coaching, it may take some energy healing, but you can clear and release these limiting belief systems and change the kind of truth you're experiencing, create a new set of validating evidence. It's really interesting, kind of funny to me now, that when I first experienced the miracle that changed my life when my elbow instantly healed with Terry, I remember in a lot of our early sessions, I'd go in and we'd be doing some digging, we'd find belief systems I had in my subconscious, like, no one will love me or whatever it is, right? Or people don't like me. And Terry would say, well, Brent, why do you believe that? And I'd go, dang it, Terry, I don't have beliefs, I just know what's true. That's what I'm talking about. That when your beliefs create enough validating evidence, you'll be convinced they're true. But of course it's not. And in case you're wondering, that's why my life was such a train wreck. That's why I went bankrupt. That's why I had all this talent and opportunity that turned into nothing. That's why I lived in chronic pain. That's why I got put on disability when I was 27. That's why my first marriage was a disaster, as with most of my relationships, why most of my friendships blew up, why I was miserable, unhappy, depressed, even suicidal. It's not entirely because of that, but it's a big piece. I couldn't distinguish between beliefs that created validating evidence and genuine truth. So I hope you can get past that. And if you don't already have someone to work with, I'd love to work with you. If you want to learn more about me and my work, just check out the Spiritual Power Quiz. I think it'll help you a lot. Learn your spiritual power, get an invite to one of my live events. But we're not quite done yet. And while we're on the subject, if you like this video, I got more to say about truth, click like, click subscribe, go smash the button, wear it out. I want to see that break off your keyboard. All right, awesome. So what do we do about this? When we have these internalized beliefs that create validating evidence, when we confuse them with truth, when we have these dysfunctional mythologies, these traumas, whether they're generational or childhood or mass consciousness or whatever, what do we do? Well, there's two different technologies I have found the most useful. Now, to be fair, there's a lot of different things we can do, right? There's a lot of different approaches that can work to help people. And I've tried a lot of them. I've been to hundreds of different self-improvement seminars. I've read thousands of books. I've done thousands of sessions with healers and coaches and intuitives and so on. What I want you to know is this internal personal mythology that guides your life is critical. It determines everything about your life and what happens. It's interesting that I remember back in the 90s when Joseph Campbell thing about the Power of Myth came out. My aunt bought me a copy and I didn't watch it for a while because I thought, oh, it sounds cool. It'll be a bunch of stories about Zeus or Odin or Ra, right? When I watched it, it really changed my life because it connected me to the fact that our personal mythology, this map for life we carry in the subconscious, determines everything because it gives meaning to your experiences. And if you want to shift your life, all you have to do is shift your perception, is give them different meanings. An example would be in film and television. They've learned about the power of lighting and perspective. That maybe you saw the Lord of the Rings movies, and it looks like the hobbits are all 3 feet tall. Are the actors 3 feet tall? No. It's all done with what's called forced perspective. So by forcing a certain perspective, it looks like they're short when they're actually not. So your life is like that. Your subconscious belief systems, your personal mythology is giving you a forced perspective. You may be a wonderful, loving person full of opportunity and talents and abilities, but your subconscious traumas have given you a forced perspective to convince you that you're not good enough, that it's not worth trying, that whatever you do is going to fail. I know because I've struggled with that too. This is why this is so important. But if you're willing to challenge it, you can overcome it. And the 2 most powerful tools I have found, just in my experience, are what's called subconscious digging, which is what I would call the 2nd generation technology. That works on the individual lines of code to identify and clear specific belief systems 1 line at a time. And this can be really powerful because it allows you to laser focus on a particular issue. It's really good, especially with physical stuff. This is the process I've used to facilitate the vast majority of the over 1,000, over 1,900 miraculous instant healings I've witnessed as a healer, as a professional. So it's a really powerful process. Now, the other process that I have found really powerful and useful is the quantum field work, what we call the Carl stuff. That's the 3rd generation. It's more advanced, steeper learning curve, but phenomenally powerful, especially in terms of prosperity and money and career. You combine those with the study of awakening. That's sort of preparing the ground, the foundation for everything else. And it gives you all the tools you need to completely revamp your internal mythology. You can literally rewrite your internal code to force a different perspective on your life. So you can see yourself as successful, as loved, as worthy, as capable and able. And this is so important because you know that whatever you believe to be true will become your truth. That when you can embody and really hold these belief systems at a deep level in the subconscious, they will create their own validating evidence. And maybe up to this point in your life, the belief systems have led you to crap. That's what they did for me. That you're not good enough, that you're going to fail, that you're going to be betrayed, that people won't love you, that if you get ahead, you'll just lose it. You can reprogram that. Create new belief systems that tell you that you are good enough, that you can do it. And if you're willing to give it a shot, I think you'll be amazed at what happens in your life. So this is a very quick overview of how we do this. If you want to learn more, you can check out my website. We'll throw up the Spiritual Power Quiz again. And I hope that you have enjoyed this series on truth. We got 1 more video coming. And so if you haven't done so yet, click like, click subscribe. I know you don't want to miss out, but that's all I got to say for right now. So this is Bright Michael Phillips signing off, and I hope to see you soon on video 5 in this series, The Truth About Truth. Until then, take care and namaste.